What happens when a billionaire owner goes undercover to check on a struggling store and ends up being mistaken for a homeless man? Isaiah Norton leaned against the cold wall of the alley behind Store 11, adjusting the old flannel jacket zipped up to his chin. The fake gray streaks in his beard itched, but he didn't scratch. He needed to blend in. His boots were scuffed, jeans faded, eyes hidden behind scratched glasses. He looked nothing like the man who sat in boardrooms or signed million-dollar agreements. He didn't want to. Store 11 was one of 18 fast food locations his father built from scratch. Isaiah had taken over after his dad passed 2 years ago. Profits were good. Most stores ran smooth, but this one, tucked between a gas station and an old laundromat, had been sending up red flags. The last 3 months brought a slow drip of bad reviews, rude service, messed up orders, a few missing hours on payroll. He'd sent the district manager to check, got a report that everything was fine, just a little staff turnover. Something didn't sit right, so Isaiah decided to go in himself. Not as the boss, but as a customer. Just a regular guy, maybe even someone down on his luck. He picked this location carefully. He'd never personally met most of the staff. It was a corporate-style setup. Hires were made by store management, and photos of him weren't hanging on any walls. His disguise was tight. He even made sure to take the long way in so no one would see him step out of a nice car. He stepped around the corner and approached the glass doors. It was just past 10 in the morning. The store should have been open for breakfast, but the lights were dim inside. A young woman pushed the mop bucket toward the front entrance, her name badge barely hanging on. Penelope Winton. He reached the door.
Pulled. Locked.
Penelope didn't look up. Isaiah knocked lightly. She looked at him, raised an eyebrow, and motioned with her hand to wait. Then she disappeared into the back. A few minutes passed. A man's voice came from inside, muffled. Then louder. "Who's at the door?" "Just some guy," Penelope replied. "He's been standing out there a bit." Another voice, this one sharp, annoyed. "Probably just a beggar again. Tell him to go wait somewhere else." Isaiah froze. He stepped back from the glass, heart thudding. Just a beggar again? His hand tightened around the strap of his worn-out backpack. Penelope returned to the front. She opened the door halfway, not stepping outside. "Sir, we're not open yet. Maybe try the diner across the street." Isaiah kept his voice low. "I saw the open sign." She glanced behind her nervously.
"Yeah, sorry.
"Manager says we're still prepping. Come back later, okay?" She shut the door. Back inside, Isaiah saw her walk away, and the manager, tall, clean-cut, early 40s, glance toward the door and shake his head. Isaiah turned around and crossed the street to a parking lot. He stood behind a truck, pulled out a phone from his backpack, and recorded a short voice memo. "Store 11. Manager just suggested I was a homeless man. Refused service. Staff told to send me away." He waited 10 more minutes, then walked back across. This time, the door was open. Inside, the place was quiet. A teenage boy swept the corner near the soda machines. Penelope was behind the register. The manager was nowhere to be seen. Isaiah stepped up. Penelope looked startled. "You again?" He offered a small shrug. "Figured I'd try again." She hesitated, then nodded.
"Fine.
"What can I get you?" He ordered a breakfast sandwich and coffee. Paid in cash. Took a seat near the window. The sandwich was cold. The coffee tasted burnt. He didn't touch either. The teenage boy, maybe 17, kept glancing at him. Finally, he came over with a tray of ketchup packets and set them on a nearby table. "You okay, man?" he asked. Isaiah looked up. The boy's name tag read Tobias.
"Yeah.
Just. Long morning." Tobias nodded. "You need anything, let me know."
They're not always welcoming here. Some of the guys.
They can be jerks. Isaiah gave him a small smile. "Thanks, Tobias." The manager finally came out from the back. He didn't even glance Isaiah's way. Instead, He barked toward Tobias. Clock out if you're done. And stop chatting with customers. We're not running a therapy center. Tobias looked down and mumbled, "Yes, sir." Isaiah's hands curled into fists. He sat there for another 20 minutes, watching, listening. A woman came in with 2 kids, and the manager snapped at her for asking to change an item. A delivery driver was told to wait outside while they finished prepping the order. It wasn't just one bad moment. This was a pattern. He got up, tossed the sandwich, and walked out. In his car, 2 blocks away, he stared at himself in the mirror. Just a beggar again. He took a deep breath. Tomorrow, he'd return. Not as a customer. As a trainee. Isaiah stood at the employee entrance the next morning, clutching a folded paper that read, "New Hire Training Packet Store 11. He hadn't sent anyone ahead. No calls. No emails. He designed this plan weeks ago with HR and anonymous hire requests submitted through the corporate system under a false name, Raymond Ellis. The store manager had accepted without much thought. They were short-staffed, and the paperwork had been quietly approved under Isaiah's executive clearance. The door creaked open. Tobias stood there with a mop again, blinking in surprise. "You're the new guy." Isaiah nodded once. "Supposed to start today." "Raymond." Tobias stepped aside. "Didn't think you'd actually apply here." "Why's that?" Isaiah asked as he walked in. Tobias hesitated. "You'll see." Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as the smell of fryer grease clung to the air. The back hallway was narrow, half the tiles chipped. Someone had scratched profanity into the wall near the time clock. Isaiah glanced around. 2 employees, one stocking sauces, the other hunched over a tablet, barely acknowledged him. Penelope emerged from the walk-in cooler with a crate of eggs. Her eyes locked on Isaiah for a second. She didn't smile. "Raymond, right?" she said, setting the crate down. "Manager's in the office. You'll want to knock. He doesn't like surprises." Isaiah nodded and approached the office door. A voice inside was raised. "If we keep giving them discounts, it's coming out of our margins. I don't care if they're regulars." He knocked twice. The door opened halfway. The manager, Brian, looked him over with the same expression someone might give a suspicious package. "You're the trainee?" "That's right." "Raymond Ellis." Brian opened the door wider, gesturing him in. The office walls were bare except for a faded schedule pinned to a corkboard. A small desk fan was pointed directly at Brian's chair. The room smelled faintly of stale coffee. Brian didn't offer a seat. "All right, Raymond. Here's how this works. You shadow one of the crew for a few days, learn the basics, then I decide if you're worth keeping. We don't have time for hand-holding."
Got it.
"Understood." "Good. You'll start with Penelope. She knows the drill. Don't slow her down." Isaiah turned to leave. "Oh, and lose the glasses. You're not here to look like a poet." Isaiah removed them silently and stepped out. Penelope was already pulling her apron tight. "Follow me," she said, motioning toward the prep line. They moved quickly. She showed him how to portion hash browns, where to stack the egg trays, and how to clean the flat top without damaging the surface. "You've done this before," she said without looking at him.
Yeah.
"Worked a few places." Penelope nodded. "Just don't talk much, and you'll be fine." The lunch rush hit harder than expected. By noon, the front was backed up. One register open. The other, according to Tobias, had been broken for 3 weeks. Brian refused to replace it, said it wasn't in the budget. Isaiah watched him bark orders from the back, as if he were conducting an orchestra he didn't care to listen to. At one point, a man in a wheelchair rolled up to the counter and asked if someone could bring his tray to the table. He had a tremor in one hand and couldn't carry it safely. Brian, standing by the soda machine, crossed his arms. "We're not room service, sir. If you can't carry it, maybe bring someone with you next time." Isaiah stepped forward, but Penelope caught his arm. "Don't," she murmured. He'll scream at you in front of everyone. Isaiah clenched his jaw. Tobias moved from the back, grabbed the tray, and gently placed it in front of the man's seat. He didn't say anything, just nodded once and walked back behind the counter. Brian didn't comment. After the line thinned, Isaiah followed Penelope to the back to restock sauces. The storage room smelled like mildew. Several boxes were crushed under their own weight. "You ever think about quitting?" Isaiah asked quietly. Penelope kept her eyes on the shelf. "Every week. So why stay?" "My baby sister's tuition. And my mom's meds. This job's garbage, but it's the only one that gives me just enough hours to scrape by." "What about the manager?"
She paused.
"Brian? He's not the worst I've worked for, but that doesn't mean he's good." Isaiah nodded slowly. "What about Tobias?" "Tobias doesn't belong here. He's too decent. He helps everyone, covers shifts, even bought a customer's meal last week when their card got declined." Brian called it interfering with store policy. A few hours later, Isaiah was sent to clean the bathroom. It was worse than he expected. A clogged sink.
No show up.
A trash bin overflowing with used paper towels. Someone had scribbled "Don't trust Brian" above the mirror in Sharpie. He cleaned in silence. When he returned, the grill cook, an older man named Leon, was arguing with Brian in hushed tones. "You shorted me again. That's the second time." Brian didn't lower his voice. "I told you. If you clock in early, that's on you." "I didn't. I clocked in at the right time." "You shaved 20 minutes. Are you accusing me of something?" Isaiah stepped behind the sink station, pretending to wash trays, but his ears stayed sharp. Leon threw his apron down. "You're gonna get someone in trouble one day." Brian didn't flinch. "If you don't like it, there's the door." Leon walked out. Isaiah stayed quiet. The dinner shift dragged. A new hire named Kiera was struggling to keep up with drive-through orders. Brian rolled his eyes and grabbed the headset from her. "If you can't handle talking and pressing buttons, maybe you're not cut out for this." Kiera blinked fast. Her hands were shaking. Isaiah stepped in to help her bag an order.
"Breathe.
Just one bag at a time." She whispered, "This is my third day." That night, after closing, Isaiah stepped outside into the alley again. He took out his phone and recorded another voice memo. His voice was low, steady. Manager refused basic accommodation for a disabled customer. Public humiliation. Dismissed wage complaints. Verbally attacked new hires. One cook walked out. No accountability. No leadership. No structure. He paused. And yet, Tobias is still here. Penelope is still here. Even Kiera showed up again the next day. They deserve better. The next morning, he returned again. This time, Tobias met him at the door with a tired smile. "Didn't scare you off yet?" Isaiah smiled back. "Not a chance." He clocked in. He wasn't done yet. Isaiah stood in the walk-in freezer, clipboard in hand, checking off inventory with Penelope beside him. The cold bit through his sleeves, but he welcomed it. It gave him clarity. Numbers were off again. 2 full trays of meat patties were logged as delivered, but only one was present. Penelope wrote it down without comment. "You think someone's skimming product?" he asked. She didn't look up. "I think someone's either lazy or covering for someone who is." They stepped out into the prep area, where Kiera was fumbling with the timer for par-cooked fries. Oil hissed beside her, and the air was thick with heat and stress. Isaiah took the clipboard to the back room and filed it in the crate marked deliveries. No one else ever looked in it. That much had become clear. In the front, Tobias was working both the register and the drive-through. His headset was frayed at the seam, and the cushion on one earpiece had come loose. Brian leaned against the counter with a half-eaten breakfast burrito in one hand and a phone in the other. "You want to jump in?" Isaiah asked, stepping up beside Tobias. Tobias hit the mute button on the headset. He won't let anyone else work drive-through until he approves their tone. I've been doing both since last week. Isaiah turned to Brian. You got a second headset? Brian looked up from his phone. You think you're ready to talk to people? I've been shadowing for 3 days. Yeah, and your line's speed slow. Let's not add more to the problem. Isaiah didn't answer. He returned to the prep station, where Kiera was wiping her eyes with the back of her wrist. Burn yourself? He asked. She shook her head.
No.
Just got chewed out for mislabeling the Friar temp log. Again. Isaiah lowered his voice. It's your 4th day. You're learning. She gave a tired laugh. Not fast enough. He told me, some people are just better off behind a register. A customer at the counter raised his voice suddenly. Is anyone actually working here? Brian didn't move. Tobias rushed to take the order. Isaiah stepped outside during his 30-minute break, sat on the curb near the dumpster, and pulled out his phone. He wasn't recording this time. He just stared at the screen, then clicked off the display. The store was close to breaking. People were hanging on by frayed edges, and Brian was twisting the rope tighter every shift. When he returned, the lunch rush was already building. A school bus had dropped off a group of teenagers, and the line had doubled. Tobias was still alone at the front. Isaiah jumped in beside him and started taking orders, ignoring Brian's glare from the back. The next customer was an older woman with a service dog. She placed her order, then asked politely if she could sit near the back where it was quieter. Brian appeared behind the counter. Health code. No animals unless they're in a carrier. Isaiah spoke without hesitation. That's a service dog. ADA requires we accommodate. Brian's expression stiffened. You a lawyer now?
No.
Just following federal law. Brian turned to the woman.
Fine. Just keep it out of the way.
We've had customers complain. The woman didn't respond. She took her tray and found a corner table. After she left, Brian pulled Isaiah aside near the dry storage. I don't recall giving you permission to address customers like that. I wasn't aware I needed permission to follow the law. You trying to make a name for yourself here? You think you're above the chain of command? No, Isaiah said, keeping his voice even. I think someone needs to set a better example. Brian stepped in closer. I've been running this store for 4 years. You've been here, what, a few shifts? You don't know what it takes to keep this place from falling apart. Isaiah didn't blink. You're right. I don't. But I've seen what makes it fall apart. Brian looked like he wanted to say more, but a crash from the kitchen cut him off. A tray of frozen burger patties had slipped from Kiera's hands and scattered across the floor. Leon, who'd been called back after walking out the day before, rushed to help her. Brian stormed past Isaiah and into the kitchen. Unbelievable. Every time I leave you alone back here, something breaks or spills. What do you think this is, a daycare? Kiera crouched to pick up the tray. It slipped. I'm sorry. You're always sorry. Maybe if you focused instead of gossiping with Grill Boy over there. Leon stood up slowly. You don't talk to her like that. Brian rounded on him. You want to walk out again? Because I won't stop you this time. Isaiah stepped between them. That's enough. Brian's mouth twisted. You think you're in charge? Isaiah reached into his back pocket and retrieved a folded paper. He handed it to Brian. Brian unfolded it, glanced down, then paled. His eyes scanned the signature at the bottom. His voice dropped. This is a joke.
No.
It's not. My name's Isaiah Norton. I own this company. Silence dropped over the kitchen like a curtain. The friar beeped behind them, ignored. Penelope, who had just stepped in from the back hallway, froze mid-step. Tobias stopped mid-order. Isaiah continued. I came here because the reports I was getting didn't match reality. I needed to see it for myself. Brian's jaw clenched. You set me up. I gave you a chance to run a store. What you did was run people into the ground. Brian tried to gather himself. I've kept this place running when no one else would. That means making hard calls.
No.
That means taking responsibility. Not cutting corners. Not humiliating employees in front of customers. Not ignoring safety protocols or wage complaints. Leon stepped back. Kiera stared at the floor. Isaiah turned to her. How many days have you worked without proper training? 4, she said quietly. And you, he asked Leon. I clocked every shift. Still got shorted. Isaiah looked at Penelope. How long have you been holding this place together? All year, she said, voice flat. But I'm tired. Isaiah turned to Tobias. You've done more than your job every day I've been here.
No complaints. No excuses.
Tobias looked stunned. I just didn't want the place to fall apart. Isaiah nodded once, then turned back to Brian. You're relieved of duty. Effective immediately. Brian stepped forward. You're making a mistake. You don't know what your staff is like when you're not here. I know exactly what they're like. That's why you're being replaced. Brian opened his mouth, then closed it. He walked to the office, slammed the door, and didn't return. Isaiah turned to the others. We're closing early today. Penelope blinked. What? I'm calling in a compliance team. Full audit. Payroll, equipment, training logs. Everything. You'll all be paid for the full shift. Tomorrow we start fresh. Leon crossed his arms. You're really doing this?
Yes.
And I should have done it sooner. Kiera looked up for the first time. Are we still employed? Every single one of you. Though I'll understand if anyone chooses to leave. But if you stay, you'll have the support you've earned. Penelope finally let her shoulders drop. You're serious. Dead serious. Isaiah walked to the front and flipped the sign to closed. A couple of customers knocked, but he waved them off. Then he turned to the crew. You deserve better. Starting now, you'll get it. The next morning, the store didn't open at dawn like it usually did. The lights inside were on, but the doors stayed locked. A large laminated sign hung on the glass, closed for internal review, reopening soon. Inside, Isaiah sat at a table near the front with a laptop open, corporate audit staff quietly walking through the back and kitchen. No one wore suits, just clean polos and clipboards. Neutral observers. They weren't there to intimidate. They were there to document. Penelope arrived first. She stood just inside the door, unsure until Isaiah looked up and nodded toward the back. Team meetings in 10. But first, check the new cooler units. She blinked. New. He stood and walked with her to the back. The old walk-in had already been replaced. The rusted shelving and flickering light were gone, replaced with a clean, sealed unit with proper temperature controls and reinforced racks. Penelope stepped inside, then turned slowly. I didn't even ask for this yet. You shouldn't have to, Isaiah said. You've been keeping things together under conditions that should have never existed. That ends today. Tobias walked in next, holding a box of his own headset parts. He froze when he saw two unfamiliar people checking the grill thermometers. You're not in trouble, Isaiah called out. We're just getting this place fixed. Tobias nodded slowly. I brought my tools. The headset was falling apart again. You won't need them, Isaiah said. Your new one's in the office, along with the backup. Leon arrived last, arms crossed, expression unreadable. He didn't sit, just leaned against the wall near the mop sink. I came to say I'm not doing double shifts anymore, he said flatly. I'll finish out the week if you need it, but you're not doing any more doubles, Isaiah interrupted. Starting today, everyone's schedule is being rebuilt from scratch. No one works more than 5 days a week, and no one closes and opens back to back. Leon looked at him, then down at the floor. He didn't reply, but his arms dropped to his sides. In the office, Kiera sat nervously across from an HR rep, her training checklist pulled up on the screen. The rep asked questions gently, typing notes as she spoke. When Kiera walked out 20 minutes later, her shoulders were straighter. Isaiah gathered the team in the dining area, while the doors stayed shut. He didn't stand on a chair, or make a speech. He sat on the edge of a table, hands folded. I spent the last 4 days watching how this place actually runs, he said. It wasn't just mismanagement. It was disregard of people, of systems, of basic decency. That's over. He looked at each of them directly, not scanning the room but holding their attention one by one. There's not going to be some fake celebration or hollow promises. Just real changes. Starting now. Penelope raised a hand slightly. Is Brian really gone? Isaiah didn't hesitate.
Yes.
His employment was terminated yesterday. He won't be involved with this company again in any capacity, not rehired, not relocated, not consulted. Leon gave a short nod. Isaiah continued. We've assigned an interim general manager. Her name is Heather, and she's arriving this afternoon. She's not from corporate, she's a store-level veteran from a high-performing location. She'll be here for the next 3 weeks. After that, we're promoting internally if someone wants the role and earns it. Tobias shifted in his seat. What about pay? Some of us haven't had a raise in over a year. Isaiah pointed to the laptop. That's being recalculated today. I've authorized an immediate wage review. Anyone who's been here longer than 6 months without an increase is getting one. Retroactively. Kiera blinked. Even me? If your training wasn't complete, that's on us. You'll be fully on board by Friday. You'll be paired with Heather until then. Once you're certified, your wage will reflect that. She nodded slowly, her hands resting still in her lap. Isaiah stood. Now, I'm not going to pretend this place will turn around overnight. You're still short-staffed. Equipment still needs replacing. But now, you'll have support. He walked to the counter and pulled a small stack of cards from under the register. These are direct contact lines. One for me, one for regional HR, one for operations. If something isn't being handled, you can escalate it. No more being ignored. Penelope stepped forward. What about the schedule? Brian used to post it the night before. Isaiah pulled a sheet from the printer behind the counter. Heather's already built next week's. You'll get it every Friday from now on, 2 weeks in advance. And it will be posted, printed, and emailed. Leon raised an eyebrow. What about overtime pressure? Brian used to guilt us into staying late without logging it. Isaiah looked directly at him. If you work more than your scheduled shift, it gets logged.
Period.
Anyone found editing time cards without cause will be terminated. There was no applause.
No cheers.
Just quiet focus and the kind of silence that comes when people are waiting to see if words will turn into actions. At noon, the doors reopened. The line outside had grown, customers curious about the closure. Heather arrived shortly after, already in uniform, sleeves rolled up. She didn't walk in with a clipboard. She went straight to the line and started taking orders. Isaiah stayed for the first 2 hours, observing from the side. The headset worked. The fryer temps held steady. Kiera moved slower, but with more accuracy. Penelope coached her without snapping. Tobias ran orders to tables when needed, and not once did he have to switch stations mid-task. A man in a wheelchair returned same customer from 2 days ago. Before he could ask, Leon stepped from behind the counter, took his tray, and led him to a clean booth. No words exchanged. Just action. Isaiah met with Heather in the office after the lunch rush. She tapped her notes. Penelope's sharp. She's got control of the line. If she wants the GM role, she'll be ready inside a month. Let her prove it, Isaiah said. But don't push. Let her pace it. Heather paused. Tobias needs recognition. Not promotion yet, but consistency. Let him master one thing at a time. Isaiah nodded. And Kiera? She's trying too hard to be invisible. I'll fix that. When the day ended, the team cleaned the place without being told. Not rushed. Not barked at. Just done together. Isaiah walked out the back, passing the alley where he'd stood just days ago, unrecognized, dismissed. He paused for a moment. The air was warmer now. Or maybe it just felt that way. He pulled out his phone. No recording this time. No memo.
Just a still moment.
Then he got into his car and left. The store didn't need a boss watching from the shadows anymore. It had people who knew what mattered and finally had the freedom to act on it.